Derek had already spent a lot of time in drug rehab and a psychiatric hospital. He'd been expelled from school and was meeting a tutor each week at her office at an inner city church. It was a slow process because Derek had no reason to trust adults. His father had abandoned him years earlier, and his mother had her own problems that she treated with drugs and alcohol. The tutor gave Derek a lot of space, and eventually he started opening up. I mean, really opening up. One day after a missed appointment, his tutor got a call from Derek's mother that her son had been hospitalized again. When his tutor reached the juvenile ward in the hospital, Derek took one look at her and burst into tears. "I can't do anything right," he said. "I know I'm worthless. I'm bad. I'll never be anything but bad." But she shook her head. "No, Derek, you're not bad. You're just hurt." And she sat with Derek for over an hour as he expressed his pain and rage. After his release from the hospital, much to her delight, but also to her trepidation, Derek started showing up in church on Sunday mornings. He got into the habit of making a grand entrance after the worship service had already begun. With baggy pants showing off his boxer shorts, he would walk down the center aisle to the very front pew. One day, one of the ushers took Derek under his wing and asked him to help take up the morning offering, not deterred by those who were worried that Derek might dip a hand into the offering plate. What was it about that inner city church that drew an awkward, deeply hurting and angry adolescent boy into their midst? What was it that caused a tough, seasoned fisherman named Simon Peter to walk away from his life in Galilee to follow Jesus? Peter, Derek, both so different, yet so much alike. Both afraid, in need of hope, grace, and healing. Peter was a fisherman, tough, resilient, strong, at least on the outside. On the inside, he had always wanted more for his life. From the beginning, Jesus had seen into his heart. And here he was offering him more, giving him the chance to be more, to make a difference. But it meant striking out from the shore into deeper waters, into the unknown, away from safety, to a place where he would have to rely on Jesus and not on his own strength, where he would be encouraged to let go of who he was, to become who God was calling him to be and to become a disciple, a fisher of men. But tough, resilient, as strong as Peter was, he was afraid. As tough as he presented himself to be, as tough as he tried to be, he was afraid. Afraid of not being enough. Afraid of letting his family down. Afraid of letting himself down. Of letting Jesus down. Afraid of failure. He had tried once. He had tried before to become a rabbi, and he had failed. And he had to go back to his boats, back to his nets, back to his family. And that was probably the hardest thing he'd had to do in his life, to give up on that dream, to settle for less. But at least it was a life that he knew. He knew how to catch fish. But a fisher of men, that was definitely outside his wheelhouse, outside his comfort zone. Derek also wanted more for his life, to be more. For once in his life, he just wanted to be safe, to fit in. He wanted his life to have meaning, to have value, purpose. But he too was afraid. Life hadn't been fair to him. Tall, young, confident on the outside, but on the inside, vulnerable, afraid, hurt, confused, afraid to love, afraid he wasn't worthy of being loved, and not knowing what to do. He too was far from the safety of the shore, but then he had never felt safe, truly never felt loved. Until now, in this church, with these people, these Christians. For the first time in his life, he wasn't alone in the boat. He wasn't alone in the storm, in the deep. Now, for the first time, he was feeling love and acceptance, forgiveness and grace. And yet, as wonderful as it was, as it seemed to be, could he trust it? And like Peter, he was afraid. In the boat with Jesus, there was no place for Peter to run. Far from shore, far from the safety of the life he knew, he knelt at the feet of Jesus and found the courage to live for the Lord. Likely he was still afraid, for sure. Jesus saw it in his eyes. But now he had Jesus in the boat, Jesus in his life. And he realized probably for the first time in his life, that this was where he belonged. What a wonderful and yet fearsome place to be. The beginning of the life that God had created him to live, meant for him to live. And Derek, one Sunday, back in that inner city church, as they sang the opening hymn, "A Mighty Fortress," Derek's tutor noticed that Margaret, the 92-year-old matriarch of the congregation, was weeping as she struggled to stand. She had just buried her husband of 60 years, just a few days before. And about the same time, the troubled 15-year-old Derek made his usual grand entrance. But this time, it was a little different. As he walked up the center aisle, he caught sight of Margaret out of the corner of his eye, and he stopped. And before she knew what was happening, he slid into the pew beside her and wrapped a long arm around her frail and trembling body and held her as she cried and as they sang together. God's truth abides still. His kingdom is forever. A mighty fortress is our God. Hear the Lord speak these same words to you today. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Don't give up. Don't stay safely tethered to the shore. Let God draw you into deeper waters. Let God use you for his greater plan and purpose. No matter how broken or insecure or imperfect you may be or think you are a perfect vessel for his love, as you were created to be. And with Jesus in your boat, by your side, in your life, you have found your place. You have found your home. You have found your vocation, your purpose, and there is no need to be afraid. God's truth abides still. His kingdom is forever. A mighty fortress is our God. Amen.